I stood on my parents' porch with 3 children behind me, 2 trash bags at my feet, a backpack sliding off my shoulder, and my youngest son's fingers twisted into the back of my sweater like he was afraid the whole world might pull me away from him. I knocked on that door the same way I had knocked on it all my life. Same white porch railing, same brass doorbell my father polished every spring, same little crack in the bottom step from the winter I was 11 and dropped a sled there. It was my mother's house, my father's door, the place where I had brought scraped knees, report cards, birthday candles, college laundry, wedding invitations, and newborn babies. And that night, with my children shivering behind me and everything I owned in garbage bags, they closed it right in front of us. My brother laughed before the door even finished shutting. My sister gave me a lecture about marriage and stability like she had lived inside my house, inside my body, inside my fear. My mother looked at me as if I had embarrassed her by needing help in a way that could not be turned into a nice family story. My father said he was sorry, but his hand stayed on the door, and I stood there with my daughter Sadie, holding my hand so tightly, her little nails pressed into my palm, and I made myself one promise. 3 words, not loud, not dramatic, not for them, just for me. Watch what happens. This is what happened. My name is Maren Calder, and 18 months ago, I had what most people would have called a normal life. Not perfect, not shiny, not the kind of life where every corner looked clean enough for a magazine photo, but normal enough, stable enough. I had a house in a quiet subdivision with a maple tree out front, a dishwasher that worked only if you pushed the button twice, a minivan with a dented bumper and a cracked left taillight I kept promising myself I would fix next paycheck, and 3 children who made every day loud, messy, exhausting, and worth living. Sadie was 9 then. Careful, observant, the kind of child who noticed when adults changed their tone. June was 6, bright and wild, always wearing 2 different socks because she said matching socks were for people who had given up on magic. Milo was 4, soft-cheeked and still small enough to climb into my lap when the world felt too big. And I had Damon. Damon Calder had been my husband for 10 years, 10 full years, long enough that I could still remember the man I married, but I had to concentrate to find him. Long enough that I had built my entire adult life around his moods, his plans, his schedule, his version of events. Long enough that when someone asked what I wanted, I usually answered with what worked best for everyone else. Nobody tells you how slowly that can happen. Nobody tells you that losing yourself does not always feel like a collapse. Sometimes it feels like being useful. Sometimes it feels like being easy to love because you ask for very little. Damon was not a screaming man. I almost wish he had been. Loud cruelty is easier to explain to other people. Damon's cruelty wore a nice shirt and remembered people's birthdays. He was charming in restaurants. He tipped well. He knew how to make strangers feel important. He could talk to a bank manager, a teacher, a neighbor, or my father and leave them convinced he was the most reasonable man in the room. At home, he was different, but never in a way that left a bruise anyone could point to. He forgot things and made me feel dramatic for remembering. He broke promises and called them misunderstandings. He spent money without telling me and then asked why I was so anxious about bills. He missed school events and said work had been impossible that week, as if my work and my exhaustion were made of lighter material. I worked part-time as a medical records coordinator at a regional clinic on the west side of town. It was not glamorous. No one clapped when I scanned discharge forms or corrected patient data or filed insurance notes. But it was steady work, and I was good at it. I knew how to organize chaos. That was my talent. I organized the house, the kids, the laundry, the meals, the school calendars, the doctor appointments, the birthday gifts, the permission slips, the lost library books, the daycare forms, the medicine doses at 2 a.m. Damon organized his career. He was a senior sales manager at a logistics company, which meant long calls, frequent travel, last-minute dinners, and a phone he guarded with the casual confidence of a man who believed no one would ever question him. The cracks in our marriage were not new. They had been spreading for years. I had just become skilled at placing furniture over them. There was the year he missed Milo's birth class because of a client dinner, then told me later that I knew how important that account was. There was the Christmas Eve when he promised he would be home by 6 and walked in after midnight smelling like bourbon and expensive perfume, carrying a gift card he had bought at a gas station. There was the time I found a hotel receipt in his jacket pocket from a city he had never told me he visited. He said it was a team booking error. I wanted to believe him. Or maybe I needed to, because believing him meant I could keep going. The truth came in the most ordinary way. A phone on a kitchen counter, a screen lighting up while I was rinsing oatmeal bowls before school, 3 short messages from a woman named Alina Cross. Last night was worth the risk. I hate watching you go home to her. Tell me again when we can stop pretending. That was all. 3 sentences. 10 years of marriage folded in on itself in less than a minute. I remember the sound of the faucet running. I remember June singing in the hallway while searching for her sneakers. I remember Milo asking if dinosaurs had belly buttons. I remember standing there with soap on my hands and Damon's phone in front of me, suddenly understanding that the strange weight I had been carrying for years had a name. I did not scream. I did not throw the phone. I did not become the kind of woman people imagine they would become in that moment. I turned the water off. I took a photo of the screen with my own phone. Then I finished packing the kids' lunches because they still had school, and no matter what had just broken inside me, Sadie still needed her math folder, June still needed her allergy-safe snack, and Milo still needed someone to find his little red jacket. When I confronted Damon that night, he did what Damon always did. He looked sad, then wounded, then patient. He said it had not been going on long. Then he said it had been emotional before it became physical. Then he said he had felt lonely. Then he said I had been distant. Then he said he loved me, but did not know how to talk to me anymore. In less than an hour, he had turned his betrayal into a shared communication problem. He did not deny it. That would have been too easy to challenge. He admitted just enough to sound honest, and blamed just enough to make me feel like I had somehow left a door open and invited this pain into our house. For 2 weeks, I tried to live inside the rubble. I slept on the edge of the bed. I made dinners no one really ate. Damon brought flowers twice and cried once, carefully, quietly, where I could see it. He said we should not make emotional decisions. He said the kids needed both parents under one roof. He said divorce would damage them more than anything he had done. He even suggested counseling, and for one strange hour I wondered if maybe I was supposed to be the bigger person, as if being big enough to swallow betrayal was a kind of virtue, but something in me had shifted. His words no longer entered me the way they used to. They passed by. They floated around the room. They sounded polished but empty. I began to notice all the old patterns with new eyes. The way he asked for time but gave none. The way he wanted forgiveness before he had told the whole truth. The way he kept saying, mistake, when what he meant was choice. A mistake is forgetting milk. A mistake is taking the wrong exit. A mistake is not building a second life behind your wife's back and then asking her to help you protect your image. By spring, I filed for divorce. I expected grief. I expected fear. I expected money problems and custody problems, and nights where I cried quietly in the shower because that was the only place the kids would not hear me. What I did not expect, what I truly did not see coming, was my family. I came from what I thought was a close family. The Vale family, good holidays, loud dinners, group texts, matching pajamas one Christmas because my mother saw them online and decided we were that kind of family. My parents, Helene and Graham, had been married for 38 years. My mother taught Sunday school for a while when we were younger, not because she was especially religious, but because she liked being trusted with other people's children. My father ran a small hardware supply business until he retired. He was the kind of man who fixed things for neighbors and acted embarrassed when they thanked him. My brother Nolan was 33, unmarried, still living in my parents' house, though everyone called it temporary, and had been calling it that for 7 years. My sister Paige was 28, newly married to a man named Trevor, and deeply certain that the success of her 18-month marriage had made her an expert on commitment. I called my mother first. I was sitting in the minivan outside the clinic after work, gripping the steering wheel with one hand and my phone with the other. I told her Damon had cheated. I told her I had proof. I told her I had filed. I told her I did not know what would happen with the house yet because Damon's name was on the mortgage too, and my attorney had said it could get complicated. I told her I needed breathing room. Not forever, just a few weeks. Maybe I could bring the kids and stay in the guest room or the basement while I figured out the next step. There was a silence on the line. Not shock, not sorrow. A measured silence. The kind that told me she had already begun organizing her response around what would look best from the outside. "Marian," she said slowly, "you know we don't really have the room." I actually looked at my phone, as if I might have called the wrong woman. My parents' house had 4 bedrooms upstairs. My parents used one. Nolan used one. The other 2 were empty except for a sewing table, a treadmill no one had touched since 2019, and boxes of holiday decorations. The basement was finished. It had a pull-out couch, a bathroom with a shower, a small refrigerator, and a television Nolan mostly used for gaming when his friends came over. I had slept in that basement with my children at Thanksgiving when the roads were icy. My mother had once joked that it was basically a little apartment. There was room. "Mom," I said carefully because I still believed careful words could lead people back to kindness. "I have 3 kids. I'm not asking for a permanent arrangement. I just need a few weeks." "You need to think this through," she said. "Divorce is not something you rush into." "He cheated on me." "I understand that you're hurt." "No," I said. "I don't think you do." She sighed then. I knew that sigh. It was the sound she made when she thought I was becoming emotional and therefore less credible. "Damon is a provider. He has always taken care of you financially. Men can be foolish, Maren. Marriage is about working through hard things." Something cold moved through me. I remember it clearly because it was the first time I understood that my pain was being weighed against Damon's usefulness, and Damon was winning. "I'm not safe in that marriage anymore," I said. "Not physically, emotionally, financially. I can't stay." "Safe is a strong word." "So is betrayal." She was quiet again. Then she said, "Your father and I will talk." The next morning, after a night where Damon walked around the house as if he were the injured party, and I packed the kids' clothes into trash bags because the suitcases were in the attic behind Christmas bins, I drove to my parents' house. I did not tell them I was coming. Maybe that was foolish. Maybe I wanted to force the truth into the daylight. Maybe I still believed that once my father saw the children standing there, once my mother saw Milo's little backpack and June's stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm, something in them would soften. The porch light was on, though it was only late afternoon. I parked in the driveway beside Nolan's old Jeep and my father's truck. Sadie got out without speaking. She had been quiet since I picked her up from school. June asked if Grandma had snacks. Milo asked if Grandpa would let him see the bird feeder. I told them we were just going to talk. I knocked. My father opened the door. Graham Vale was not a cruel-looking man. That is part of what made it hurt so badly. He looked like my dad. Gray hair, flannel shirt, reading glasses hanging from his collar, the man who taught me how to patch a bike tire, the man who stood in the rain at my high school track meet. But his face changed when he saw the bags and the children. Not surprise, not confusion. More like discomfort, like he had been given a script and now hated having to perform it. "Your mother and I talked?" he said. I nodded, waiting. "We don't think it's a good idea for you to stay here." My throat tightened so fast I almost could not answer. "Dad, I have nowhere else to go tonight." "You have your house?" "I don't know if I can stay there. Damon won't leave. The lawyer said it could take time." "Then maybe you should slow down," he said. "Go back. Try again. At least until things are settled." Sadie was standing behind me. I felt her hand slide into mine. She was 9 years old and already learning that adults could betray you politely. "I'm not going back," I said. "I'm asking you for help." My father looked at me. Then he looked over my shoulder at my children. I saw guilt flicker across his face. Real guilt. Human guilt. But it was weak. It did not move his feet. It did not open the door wider. "I'm sorry, Maren," he said. "We can't do it right now." Then he began to close the door. Before it shut, Nolan appeared behind him. My brother, 33 years old, living rent-free in a house with empty bedrooms, wearing a headset around his neck and holding a can of soda. He leaned into the opening with a half smile, like this was an awkward scene he could make funny. "There literally isn't space, Mayor," he said. "You know how packed it is here." He had an entire basement to himself. My old bedroom had been turned into a room for his collectible boxes and spare monitors. He had more space for plastic figurines than my children were being offered for their bodies. I looked at him for one long second. I could have said that. I could have said all of it. But Milo had started to cry quietly into my sweater, and June was staring at the door like she could not understand how a house she associated with cookies and birthdays had suddenly become a wall. Then Paige appeared in the hallway. Of course she did. My sister had always had a talent for arriving at the exact moment when someone else was already bleeding and offering advice instead of a bandage. She stood beside Nolan with her arms crossed, hair curled, nails done, wearing the soft beige sweater my mother had bought her the week before because Paige had been under so much stress planning her anniversary dinner. "Maren," she said, in the voice people use when they want to sound kind while judging you, "I really think you're making a mistake." Damon messed up, yes, but blowing up the kids' lives because you're hurt is not mature. I stared at her. She kept going. "Your children need stability more than they need you to prove a point." Stability. That word, I can still feel it. It landed somewhere deep and hot. I had been the stability. I had been every packed lunch and washed sheet and signed form and fever chart. I had been the one who knew which stuffed animal Milo needed when he was sick, which teacher Sadie feared disappointing, which cereal June would eat only if the milk went in first. Damon was a paycheck and a charming speech at school fundraisers. I was the daily architecture of their lives. "Thank you for your input," I said. My voice was so even, it almost did not sound like mine. Paige gave a little shrug, like I was being difficult. My mother appeared behind her then, but did not come to the door. She stood in the hallway, one hand pressed to her chest, looking tragic. Later, I would realize she wanted to feel sad without having to do anything brave. I bent down, picked up one of the trash bags, and adjusted Milo's backpack on his shoulders. My father still had his hand on the door. "Okay," I said. That was all. Just okay. I walked my children back to the minivan with my face dry and my spine straight because I refused to collapse in front of that house. I buckled Milo into his seat. I helped June with her rabbit. Sadie buckled herself and looked out the window. As I backed out of the driveway, Nolan was still standing behind the screen door. He laughed at something Paige said. Maybe it was not about me. Maybe it was. At that point, the difference did not matter. We spent that first night at a motel 30 minutes outside of town because I did not want to risk seeing anyone we knew. It was one of those places near the highway with a flickering sign, brown carpet, and a lobby that smelled like burnt coffee and lemon cleaner. The room had 2 beds, a small desk, and curtains that did not close all the way. It cost more than I wanted to spend, but it was clean enough. And the front desk clerk, an older man with tired eyes, gave us extra towels without asking questions. The kids thought it was an adventure for the first 20 minutes. June jumped on the bed until I told her to stop. Milo opened every drawer and announced there was no treasure. Sadie helped me lay out pajamas and toothbrushes, moving with the quiet competence of a child who had decided to become helpful before she should have had to. We ate peanut butter crackers and apples for dinner because that was what I had in the bag. I told them we would figure things out tomorrow. After they fell asleep, all 3 of them tangled across the beds like puppies, I sat on the bathroom floor with my phone in my hand and looked at my bank account. I had $842 in checking, $300 in emergency savings, and a credit card with more balance than available credit. Damon had already moved half the money from our joint account into a separate account to protect himself until the lawyers sorted things out. That was how he phrased it, protect himself from me, from the woman eating crackers for dinner so the children could have the apples. I did not sleep that night. I listened to trucks passing on the highway and thought about my mother's hallway, my father's hand on the door, Nolan's laugh, Paige's lecture. I also thought about what I still had. 3 children alive and safe under the same roof as me, a part-time job I could maybe turn into more hours, a lawyer named Iris Bell who had agreed to a payment plan because she said, "Women like you always think documentation is boring until it saves your life." A car that still ran, a body that could keep going even when my heart felt like it had been dragged behind me, and a promise. Watch what happens. The first month was ugly in 1,000 small ways, not cinematic ugly, real ugly. The kind that does not make a good scene because it repeats itself. The motel bill eating money every morning, the kids asking when we were going home and me not knowing which home they meant. The school secretary looking at me differently when I changed the emergency contact address to a motel. The daycare director reminding me, with professional sympathy, that late pickup fees still applied even during a personal crisis. The minivan refusing to start one rainy Tuesday, while Milo cried because he thought the car was sick. The laundromat machine taking my last $5 bill and not starting. Standing in a grocery store aisle doing math in my head and putting back the strawberries because cereal, eggs, and bread mattered more. Damon did not make it easier. He texted like a man building evidence. "Can you confirm where the children are sleeping tonight? Can you confirm that the motel is safe? I'm concerned about instability. I hope you're not involving the kids in adult issues." Every message sounded reasonable if you did not know what he had done. That was his gift. He could pour poison into a clean glass and call it water. My attorney saw it immediately. I sat in Iris Bell's office 2 weeks after the porch incident with a folder of printed screenshots, bank statements, school calendars, and medical forms. Iris was in her late 40s with silver at her temples and the calm expression of a woman who had watched too many charming men weaponize politeness. She read Damon's texts, then looked at me over her glasses. "He's setting up a custody argument," she said. My stomach dropped. "Because I'm in a motel?" "Because he helped create the instability and now wants to use it as proof you're unstable." I remember gripping the edge of the chair. "Can he do that?" "He can try," she said. "And we can answer with records." Records. That word became my rope. I started keeping everything, every receipt, every message, every school pickup log, every doctor appointment reminder, every late fee, every time Damon canceled or changed visitation, every time he claimed he wanted the children but could not take them because of work, every time my family texted something that sounded loving from a distance but cold up close. My mother did not call after that first refusal, not for 12 days, then she sent a message. "Thinking of you, praying for wisdom." I stared at it in the motel parking lot while the kids ate granola bars in the back seat. Praying for wisdom. Not offering a bed, not offering a meal, not asking if the children had enough clean socks, just wisdom. I wrote back, "Thank you." Because I was still learning that sometimes the safest response is the smallest one. Paige sent articles about rebuilding trust after infidelity. She sent a podcast episode titled, "Why Strong Women Sometimes Destroy Their Own Families." She sent a long message telling me that Trevor believed Damon seemed remorseful and that maybe I should consider the damage divorce would do to the children's long-term development. Trevor had met Damon 4 times. Once at a barbecue where Damon spent half the afternoon showing him how to smoke brisket. Apparently that was enough to make him a marriage counselor. Nolan sent nothing. But he did post a photo of himself in my parents' basement with the caption, "Finally got the full setup perfect." In the background, I could see the pull-out couch. That couch could have held Sadie and June. That bathroom could have bathed Milo. That basement could have given us 2 weeks of safety. Instead, it held my brother's second monitor. The first deeper cut came on a Saturday morning. I had taken the kids to a free story hour at the library because the motel walls had started closing in on us. Sadie was reading in a corner. June was making a paper dragon. Milo was sitting in my lap, warm and heavy, when I saw my mother through the front window. She was walking in with Paige. For 1 second, I felt hope. Ridiculous hope. The body remembers love before the mind catches up. They saw me. Both of them stopped. Paige recovered first. She smiled too brightly and came over. My mother followed, looking around as if she was afraid someone she knew might notice we were together. "Hi, sweetheart," my mother said to Milo, touching his hair. He leaned into her hand because he missed her. That nearly broke me. June came running over with glue on her fingers. "Grandma, are we coming to your house?" My mother froze. Paige looked at me quickly, irritated, as if I had trained June to ask that question in public. My mother bent down and said, "Not today, honey. Grandma's house is very busy right now." Very busy. The phrase sat there between us like something rotten. Sadie had come over by then. She heard it. I saw her face change, just slightly, the way children's faces change when they understand something adults hoped they would miss. Paige pulled me aside near the biography shelves, while my mother distracted the kids with bookmarks from the front desk. "You shouldn't put Mom on the spot like that," she whispered. I didn't say anything. "Your kids are clearly confused. They're confused because their grandparents disappeared." Her eyes narrowed. "That is not fair." "No," I said. "It isn't." She lowered her voice further. "You know, Damon told Mom you won't even discuss counseling anymore." The floor seemed to tilt for a second. "Damon talks to Mom?" Paige blinked once. Too late. There it was. A tiny door opening. "How often?" I asked. "That's not the point." "How often?" She pressed her lips together. "He's worried about the kids. He reached out because he doesn't know what else to do." He reached out. To my mother. The woman who had not called to ask where my children were sleeping. I looked across the library at Helene Vale, handing my son a bookmark shaped like a rocket and smiling like a grandmother in a picture frame. That was the day I stopped waiting for my family to remember who I was. 2 days later, Damon filed a temporary custody request, claiming that I had removed the children from the marital home without a stable housing plan. He did not mention the affair. He did not mention the money he moved. He did not mention the empty bedrooms at my parents' house or the door closed in our faces. He described himself as deeply concerned and ready to provide stability. Iris read the filing, then looked at me, "Now we work." And we did. I asked my supervisor, Marla Trent, for full-time hours before she even had the chance to bring it up. Marla was direct, sharp, and not sentimental. She ran medical records like a military operation and hated excuses almost as much as she hated lost forms. I had always respected her. I had never expected her to become one of the first people to actually help me. She called me into her office one Thursday after watching me come in early 3 days in a row. "Are you in trouble?" she asked. I almost said no. Women like me are trained to say no even while standing in a burning room. Instead, I said, "Yes." Marla leaned back in her chair. "Housing, money, legal, or all of it?" "All of it." She nodded once. No pity, no shocked face, no performance. "I can give you full-time hours starting Monday, benefits after probation, but I can push the paperwork faster. There's also a records backlog project. It pays overtime if you can handle it." "I can handle it," I said before she finished. "I figured." She paused. "And Maren?" "Yes?" "Do not let a man who can't fill out a pediatric intake form convince a judge he's the better parent." For the first time in weeks, I laughed. Not fully, not freely, but enough. Full-time hours changed everything and nothing at once. It did not magically pull us out of the motel. It did not pay the lawyer, the daycare, the car insurance, the school lunches, and the motel bill all in one breath, but it gave me a line to hold. I worked while the kids were at school and daycare. I stayed late when Damon had them for a few hours. I scanned records until my eyes burned. I corrected years of messy data. I learned a new system faster than anyone expected because I had 3 children sleeping under temporary blankets and no room for pride. The second month, we moved from the motel into a small 2-bedroom apartment in a brick building near Sadie and June's school. It was not beautiful. The hallway smelled like someone else's cooking and old carpet. The kitchen had one drawer that opened properly and another that required negotiation. The bathroom sink dripped unless you turned the handle exactly right. The windows were thin. The neighbor upstairs walked like he was moving furniture in his sleep. But it was ours. I signed the lease with my own hand. I paid the deposit with money I had earned and money from selling my wedding ring to a jeweler who tried to make sympathetic conversation while weighing 10 years of my life on a little scale. I bought secondhand bunk beds from a woman on Marketplace who helped me tie the pieces to the minivan roof with rope because she saw the kids and understood without me explaining. I found a table at a thrift store with a scratch down the middle. June called it character. Sadie called it affordable. Milo called it ours. And that was enough. The first night in the apartment, we ate scrambled eggs and toast on paper plates because I had not unpacked the dishes. June picked the bedroom wall closest to the window. Sadie let her, even though I could tell she wanted it. Milo slept on a mattress on my bedroom floor for the first week because he said the apartment made new noises. I lay awake listening to the refrigerator hum and the upstairs neighbor pace, and I did not feel safe exactly, but I felt something close. I felt the door lock behind us and knew no one could close it in our faces from the inside. My family found out we had moved because my mother drove by the motel and we were gone. She called that evening. "You moved?" she asked. "Yes." "You didn't tell us." "No." A pause. "That hurts, Maren." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the shape of her hurt was so convenient. She could not find room for my children, but she found room to be wounded that I no longer reported my movements. "We're settled," I said. "The kids are fine." "Well, I wish you would let us help emotionally, at least." "Emotionally?" "At least." I looked around the apartment, at the boxes, at the thrift store table, at Milo's shoes by the door, at Sadie helping June tape a drawing to the wall. "I have to go," I said. The divorce process stretched like bad weather. Damon's first lawyer was aggressive in the smooth way expensive lawyers can be aggressive. They asked for joint physical custody on a schedule Damon had never lived, week on, week off, alternating school pickups, shared medical decisions. He wanted to look like a father who had always been there, but he did not know the name of Milo's daycare teacher. He did not know Sadie had outgrown her asthma inhaler dose the previous winter. He did not know June could not have red dye because it triggered migraines. He did not know the dentist had warned us about Milo's thumb sucking. He did not know because he had not been doing the work. I had records, school sign-in sheets, emails to teachers, pediatric visit summaries, insurance forms, daycare pickup logs, photos from every school performance where Damon was missing, and I was sitting in a folding chair holding someone's coat. Text messages where I reminded him about events, and he answered, "Can't make it, you've got this, right?" Receipts for shoes, medicine, groceries, backpacks, every small, ordinary proof that motherhood is not a feeling. It is labor. Daily, documented labor. The first custody evaluation was humiliating in a quiet way. A woman with a clipboard asked me about routines, discipline, meals, homework, sleeping arrangements, finances, emotional support. I answered everything. Then she asked Damon similar questions. He sounded confident until details arrived. He said Milo went to Little Oaks daycare. Milo had never gone to Little Oaks. He said June's teacher was Mrs. Keller. That was Sadie's third-grade teacher from 2 years before. He said Sadie liked soccer. Sadie hated soccer and had quit after one season because the whistle made her anxious. He smiled through his mistakes. I watched the evaluator write them down. The first major twist came 3 weeks before the temporary custody hearing. Iris called me into her office and placed a printed document on the desk. "I need you to read this," she said. It was a declaration submitted by Damon's legal team. A character statement. From my mother. My hands went cold before I finished the first paragraph. Helene Vale wrote that Damon had always been a devoted provider. She wrote that I could be highly emotional under stress. She wrote that my decision to leave the marital home with the children seemed sudden and concerning. She wrote that my parents had been unable to accommodate me due to space limitations, but had encouraged me to pursue counseling and reconciliation. Unable to accommodate. Space limitations. I read those words 3 times. Then I saw a second statement, my sister's. Paige wrote that she had personally urged me to consider the children's stability and that I seemed more focused on punishment than repair. She wrote that Damon had reached out, repeatedly trying to keep the family together. She wrote that she worried I was allowing hurt feelings to guide major decisions. There was no statement from my father, no statement from Nolan, just my mother and sister, polished and careful, standing behind Damon with clean hands. I did not cry in Iris's office. Something beyond crying happened, a quiet blankness, a kind of internal silence so complete that Iris leaned forward and softened her voice. "Maren." I looked at her. "This hurts," she said. "I know, but it may also help us." "How?" "Because now they have put the porch on paper." I did not understand. She tapped the first declaration. "They admit you asked for help. They admit they refused. They claim space limitations. Do you have photos of the house?" I almost laughed because of course I did. Years of holidays, birthdays, Thanksgiving sleepovers in the basement, photos of the pull-out couch, the guest room, the finished basement, the bathroom, Nolan's gaming setup spreading across half a floor. Iris smiled slightly. Good. That was the first time I understood something important. People who lie casually often forget that the truth has been standing in the background of family photos for years. At the hearing, Damon arrived in a navy suit and sat beside his lawyer, looking tired and noble. My mother and Paige sat behind him. Behind him, not behind me, not even in the middle. Behind him. My father did not come. Nolan did not come. I walked in alone, except for Iris wearing a black dress I had bought at a discount store and shoes that pinched my toes because I had not worn dress shoes in years. Damon's lawyer spoke first. He painted me as overwhelmed, emotional, financially uncertain. He said Damon had concerns about the children moving from a house to a motel to a small apartment in a short time. He said Damon wanted stability and shared parenting. He said Damon had made mistakes in the marriage but remained committed to the children. Then Iris stood. She did not raise her voice. She did not insult Damon. She simply walked through the records. 10 years of records. She showed that I had been the primary parent. She showed that Damon had moved money after I discovered the affair. She showed the motel receipts and the timing. She showed his texts asking where the children were sleeping while refusing to leave the marital home. She showed my full-time employment offer, my lease, my daycare arrangements, school attendance, medical appointments, everything. Then she addressed the family declarations. "Mrs. Vale states there was no space in the home," Iris said. "However, we are submitting photographs from multiple family gatherings showing 2 unused bedrooms and a finished basement with bathroom facilities where Ms. Calder and the children had previously stayed overnight. We are not suggesting grandparents are legally required to provide housing, but their refusal should not be used to imply my client is unstable when she sought family support and was denied it." My mother's face went pale. Paige stared down at her lap. I looked straight ahead. Damon's lawyer objected to the tone. The judge allowed the documents. The temporary order gave me primary physical custody. Damon received alternating weekends, 1 midweek dinner if arranged in advance, and shared legal custody with final decision-making on education and health temporarily assigned to me due to demonstrated involvement. Child support was ordered. Temporary spousal support was modest, but it existed. Damon was also ordered not to move or hide marital funds. When we walked out, my mother stood near the hallway wall. She looked smaller than usual. "Maren," she said. I stopped because I still had enough softness left to stop. "I didn't know they would use it like that," she whispered. I looked at her for a long moment. "You signed it." Her eyes filled. "I was trying to help everyone." "No," I said. "You were trying to avoid choosing, and you chose anyway." Paige stepped forward, face tight. "That's not fair. We were worried about you. You were worried about how my divorce made you feel." She opened her mouth, then closed it. I walked away before either of them could turn their guilt into my responsibility. After the hearing, things did not become easy. They became possible. There is a difference. Damon paid support late the first month and complained about it in long messages full of words like fairness and burden. He showed up for the midweek dinner twice, then began canceling because of work. The kids came home from weekends with him carrying new toys and strange sadness. He was fun for 48 hours because fun does not require remembering dentist appointments. He took them to arcades, ordered pizza, let them stay up late, then returned them Sunday evening, overstimulated and exhausted. I became the boring parent again, the homework parent, the bath parent, the lunchbox parent, the one who said no and meant it. My family entered a new phase then, not apology. Apology would have required truth. They entered performance. My mother began sending texts about the children. "How is Sadie? Does June still like horses? Tell Milo Grandma misses him." I answered only what served the children. "Sadie is doing well in school. June still likes horses. Milo is fine. I did not send photos unless the kids asked me to. I did not invite her over. I did not explain my boundaries because people who need your boundaries explained usually want a map to get around them." Paige sent longer messages, long enough that I sometimes wondered if she drafted them in notes first. "I hope you know I never meant to hurt you. I was scared for the kids. I only wanted you to think before making a permanent choice." I'm sorry if my words came out wrong. If came out wrong, passive little phrases, as if her words had escaped without her permission, run down the porch steps and slapped me by accident. Nolan remained silent. Except once, accidentally, when he texted the family group chat asking if Mom and Dad were still paying his truck insurance, or if he needed to move money around. He deleted it quickly, but I saw it. I did not respond. I just stared at those words and thought about no space. Winter came. The first Christmas after the divorce nearly broke me, but not in the way I expected. I had no money for the kind of Christmas my kids were used to. I bought gifts slowly, hiding them in the trunk under blankets. A craft kit for June, used books for Sadie, a dinosaur blanket for Milo, socks and pajamas, candy from the dollar store. I told myself children remember warmth more than price, but I still cried in the parking lot outside the thrift store because I found a wooden dollhouse June would have loved and could not make the numbers work. My mother mailed a Christmas card, not gifts, a card. On the front, a snowy house with golden windows. Inside, she had written, "Thinking of you all this season. Love, Mom and Dad." There was a family photo tucked inside. My parents, Nolan, Paige, Trevor, and Damon. Damon. They had invited my cheating husband to Christmas dinner for the sake of peace, as Paige later explained. In a text I did not answer. The photo showed him standing beside my father near the fireplace, holding a mug, wearing the navy sweater I had bought him 2 years earlier. Nolan had one arm around him like they were brothers. Paige smiled beside Trevor. My mother sat in the center. Perfect hair, perfect tree, perfect family, without the inconvenient daughter and her children. Sadie found the photo on the counter before I could move it. "Dad went to Grandma's?" she asked. I did not know what to say that would be true and not cruel. "It looks like he visited," I said. "Were we invited?" I shook my head once, not because I wanted to, but because lying to her felt worse. She looked at the photo again. Her face did not crumple. That almost hurt more. She simply became still. Then she handed it back to me and said, "You can throw it away." I did. Not in anger, not dramatically. I placed it in the trash under coffee grounds. Then I made pancakes for dinner because June had asked if Christmas Eve pancakes were a tradition now, and I said yes because sometimes traditions are born from survival wearing a paper crown. In January, Damon's affair with Alina began to fall apart. I learned this not because I asked, but because people tell divorced women things they think will comfort them. Alina apparently had believed Damon's story that he was trapped in a loveless marriage with a cold wife. She did not enjoy discovering that the cold wife had 3 children, court records, and child support orders. She also did not enjoy the part where Damon's charming sadness turned into practical inconvenience. By March, she was gone. Damon became angrier after that. Not openly, he did not scream. He tightened. He complained about money. He hinted that I had ruined him. He sent messages at midnight about how divorce had hurt the children. He started bringing up reconciliation in careful ways. We could still fix this. The kids deserve a whole family. You're punishing me forever for one mistake. I never answered those messages. I kept the conversation to the children. Pickup is Friday at 5:30. Milo needs his jacket returned. Sadie has a science project due Monday. June cannot have red dye. Efficient, boring, safe. At work, I became someone I had not expected to meet. Myself, maybe, but sharper, more focused. Marla gave me the backlog project, then another. I caught duplicate entries that had caused billing problems. I built a spreadsheet that reduced processing delays. I trained 2 new hires because Marla said I explained things without making people feel stupid. I started wearing my badge like it meant something. Not because medical records was glamorous, because competence feels like oxygen when your personal life has been described in court as instability. One afternoon in April, Marla called me into her office again. "I'm recommending you for department lead," she said. I stared at her. "What?" "Don't make me repeat compliments. It irritates me. I don't have a degree. You have 10 years of experience doing 8 people's jobs at home and 3 people's jobs here. You know the system, you know compliance, you don't panic. Apply." I did not tell her. I went to my car and cried for 6 minutes. Happy tears are not always soft. Sometimes they feel like grief leaving the body. The promotion did not happen immediately. There were interviews, questions, waiting, a panel where a man from administration asked how I handled pressure, and I almost laughed because I had built legal binders in a motel bathroom while my children slept. Instead, I said, I prioritize documentation, communication, and follow-through, which was also true. I got the job. The salary increase was not enormous by the world's standards. No one would make a movie about it. But when I saw the number in the offer letter, I sat down at the kitchen table. It meant rent without panic, groceries without putting back strawberries every time, a small emergency fund, maybe fixing the taillight, maybe gymnastics for June, who had been using the couch as a balance beam, maybe a real bed frame for me instead of a mattress on a metal platform that squeaked if I breathed wrong. I told the kids at dinner. Sadie smiled first, slow and proud. June cheered and asked if this meant we were rich. Milo asked if department lead meant I was the boss of the papers. Yes, I said. I am the boss of the papers. June raised her cup of milk. To Mom, boss of papers. We toasted with milk and tap water at a scratched thrift store table, and I felt richer than I had ever felt in the big house with Damon. Around that same time, the divorce settlement began moving toward final. Damon's second lawyer was less dramatic than the first, probably because the records were not in Damon's favor. The custody evaluation was clear. I was the primary parent. Damon loved the children, yes. But love, the evaluator noted, had to be measured alongside consistency, knowledge of needs, and demonstrated caregiving history. I read that sentence 4 times. Demonstrated caregiving history. It sounded clinical, but to me it meant every night I had stayed awake with fevers, every form I had filled out, every lunch I had packed, every small invisible act had finally become visible somewhere official. The final order gave me primary physical custody. Damon kept alternating weekends, 2 weeks in summer, shared holidays on a schedule, and child support based on his income. He owed 8 months of retroactive support because he had delayed and underpaid while claiming financial uncertainty. His lawyer tried to argue it down. Iris did not let him. The judge did not either. When the order came through, I did not celebrate right away. I sat in my car outside Iris's office and let the paper rest in my lap. Freedom, I learned, is not always a feeling. Sometimes it is a stack of signed pages. The next day, my mother called. I knew before answering that she had heard. Our town was not large, and legal news traveled through church friends, school parents, and people who said they did not gossip while carrying full reports from one porch to another. "We heard things are finalized," she said. "Yes." "We're relieved it worked out." I looked at the kitchen wall, where June had taped a drawing of our family as 4 stick figures under a giant yellow sun. "Are you? Maren, don't do that." "Do what?" "Make everything a fight." I took a breath. "I'm not fighting. I'm asking what you mean by relieved." She sighed. "Relieved that you and the children are settled. Relieved that the court saw you're a good mother. Relieved that this ugly period can be behind us." Behind us? I thought about motel carpet. I thought about Sadie asking if we had been invited to Christmas. I thought about my mother's statement in Damon's custody filing. I thought about the porch. "It's not behind me," I said. Silence. "Maren," she said softly, moving into that wounded tone again, "families make mistakes." "Yes," I said. "And sometimes those mistakes become information." "What does that mean?" "It means I know who opens the door now." She began to cry then, quietly, maybe truly, maybe not. It is hard to tell after someone has used tears as a curtain too many times. "I miss my grandchildren," she said. "I know." "Can we see them?" "When the kids ask, I'll consider what is healthy for them." "That sounds so cold." "No," I said. Cold was closing the door. This is careful. She did not answer. Paige's apology came 2 weeks later. Not a real apology, but closer than before. She asked if we could meet for coffee. I almost said no. Then I decided I wanted to see who she had become with distance and discomfort pressing on her. We met at a cafe near the clinic. I came during my lunch break wearing my work badge. Paige arrived in a pale blue coat, looking nervous. That surprised me. Paige rarely looked nervous. She looked like someone who had practiced humility but was not yet fluent. "You look good," she said. "I'm tired," I said. "But good." She nodded. "Mom says you got promoted." "I did." "That's amazing." "Thank you." There was a long pause. She stirred her coffee, though she had not added sugar. "I owe you an apology," she said. I waited. What I said on the porch was wrong, and the statement for Damon was wrong. I thought I was helping the kids. I thought if you calmed down, maybe things could be fixed. I looked at her. "You thought I was the problem because Damon was easier to forgive." She swallowed. "Maybe?" "No, not maybe." Her eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back. That was something at least. "I was scared," she said. "Watching your marriage end scared me. Trevor and I were newly married, and I think I needed to believe there was always a way to fix things, because if there wasn't, then marriage felt less safe." There it was. A truth. Selfish, but real. "You used my life to comfort yourself," I said. She nodded slowly. "Yes." I appreciated the honesty. I did not confuse it with repair. "I'm glad you can say that," I told her. "But I'm not ready to be close." "I know." "I don't think you do. You want this conversation to be the hard part. But the hard part was me standing on that porch with my kids. This is just you finally looking at it." She started crying then. I let her. I did not comfort her. That may sound cruel if you have never been trained to soothe the person who hurt you. To me, it felt like returning a job I had never been paid to do. My father came to see me in June. He did not call first. He knocked on my apartment door on a Saturday morning while I was helping Milo build a block tower. When I opened it and saw him standing there in a short-sleeved button-down shirt, holding a paper bag from the bakery, I felt 12 years old and 40 years old at the same time. "Dad," I said. He looked past me into the apartment. Not judging, taking it in, the small living room, the secondhand couch, the kids' drawings, the bookshelf, June's sneakers by the door, Sadie's backpack hanging on a hook, evidence of a life he had not helped build. "I brought muffins," he said. The children heard his voice and came running. Milo hugged his legs immediately because 4-year-old love is generous. June shouted over in, "Grandpa." Sadie approached more slowly. My father's face shifted when he saw that. He noticed. Good. I let him in because the kids wanted him, not because he had earned me. He sat at the table while they ate muffins and told him about school and daycare and June's imaginary horse named Lightning Pancake. He laughed in the right places. He asked questions. He looked older than he had on the porch. When the kids went to play, he stayed at the table, turning his coffee mug between his hands. "I should have opened the door," he said. No introduction. No excuse. Just that. My throat tightened. "Yes," I said. "You should have." He nodded. His eyes were wet. Your mother was worried. Nolan complained. Paige had opinions. Damon had called. Everyone was talking at once. I told myself we were keeping from making things worse. You made them worse. I know. I wanted to hate him cleanly, but my father's failure had not been cold like my mother's. It had been weak. Weakness can hurt just as much as cruelty, but it is harder to hold in your hand. "Why didn't you come after us?" I asked. He looked down. That answer was in the silence. "You were embarrassed," I said. He closed his eyes. "You were embarrassed that I needed help. You were embarrassed that your family wasn't perfect. You were embarrassed that Damon cheated, and I wouldn't hide it." "I was ashamed," he whispered. "Of me? Of myself?" I did not know what to do with that. It was too late to rescue the moment it should have saved, but it was something. "I can't go back to being your daughter the way I was," I said. He nodded. "I know." "I don't trust you with my emergency." He flinched, but he accepted it. "I know." That was the beginning of a thin, cautious relationship with my father. Not fixed, not healed, but honest in small amounts. He came to school events when invited by the kids. He did not bring my mother unless I said it was okay. He did not push. He learned, slowly, that guilt is not a key. Nolan never apologized, not once. But his life began to turn in ways that felt almost too obvious. My parents, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of financial necessity, finally told him he had 6 months to move out or start paying rent. He was offended, deeply. He called it betrayal in a family text I was still technically part of. He wrote, "Must be nice how everyone suddenly cares about boundaries." I stared at the message for a while. Then I left the group chat. My mother added me back within an hour. I left again. She stopped. Leaving that group chat felt strangely powerful. For years, that thread had been the center of family life. Birthday plans, holiday menus, complaints, photos, little jokes. After the porch, it had become a room where I could stand, invisible, while they continued around my absence. Leaving was not dramatic. No speech, no announcement. Just a small digital door. I closed myself. By late summer, I had saved enough to move again. The 2-bedroom apartment had carried us through the hardest season, but the kids were growing. Sadie needed quiet. June needed space to be June without Milo stepping on her art. Milo needed a bed that was not wedged beside my dresser. I found a 3-bedroom townhouse in the same school district. Not fancy, not huge, but newer. Safer, more light. The kitchen had 4 drawers and all of them opened. That felt luxurious. The day we moved, Marla showed up with coffee and 2 coworkers from the clinic. Mrs. Rocha from the apartment downstairs watched the kids while we loaded boxes. A school mom I barely knew brought over a casserole. Iris sent a card that said, "For the next chapter." My father came with his truck and did not complain when I asked him to carry the heavy things. My mother texted, "Wish we had known so we could help." I did not answer because she had known enough when it mattered. In the townhouse, the kids each got a room. Sadie chose pale green curtains and arranged her books by genre. June demanded one chalkboard wall, and I said yes, because there are times when a child's joy is worth the future mess. Milo wanted dinosaur sheets and a nightlight shaped like the moon. I bought myself a used wooden bed frame and stood in the doorway looking at it after I assembled it. A bed, not a mattress on the floor, not half of a bed beside a man who had lied to me. Mine. That fall, life became almost boring, beautifully boring. Mornings with cereal and lost shoes, work days with meetings and forms, evenings with homework, pasta, baths, bedtime stories. Damon showed up for most weekends and missed some. He became less combative when he realized the court order did not bend because he was annoyed. He moved into a one-bedroom apartment after Alina left and the house was sold. I received my portion of the equity. Not as much as people imagine after debts and fees, but enough to clear my credit card, fix the minivan, and start a savings account with a number that made me breathe easier. The house sale was another strange grief. I walked through it once before closing to make sure nothing of the kids remained. Empty rooms have a way of telling the truth. Without furniture, without toys, without Damon's work bag on the chair, it was just a house. Walls, floors, the maple tree outside. I stood in the kitchen where I had seen Alina's messages and felt nothing for a long moment. Then I felt relief. That house had not been safety. It had been scenery. Damon was there too, in the garage, sorting a box of tools he had once claimed he could not find time to organize. He looked thinner, tired, less polished. "You got what you wanted," he said. I turned toward him. "No. I got what I could survive with." He looked away. "I did love you," he said. I believed him. That was the sad part. He had loved me in the way some people love a house they never maintain. He liked knowing I was there. He liked the warmth, the order, the lights on. He just did not understand that love without care becomes ownership. "I know," I said. "It wasn't enough." I left him standing there with the tools. By Thanksgiving, my mother began pushing for a family dinner. She did it through my father first, then Paige, then directly. She said the children deserved family. She said enough time had passed. She said holding grudges was not healthy. She said Grandma was getting older and missed seeing everyone together. I asked Sadie privately how she felt. She was 10 by then, thoughtful in a way that made me proud and sad. "Would Dad be there?" she asked. "No." "Would Uncle Nolan?" "Probably." "Would Grandma say weird things?" "Maybe." Sadie thought about it. "I don't want to go if everyone acts like nothing happened." There are moments when your child gives you permission you did not know you were waiting for. "We won't go," I said. Instead, we had Thanksgiving in the townhouse. Just us 4, with my father stopping by for dessert because the kids asked him to. We made turkey breast instead of a whole turkey because I was not fighting a giant bird for tradition. June made place cards. Milo spilled cranberry sauce. Sadie made a pumpkin pie with a crust that collapsed on one side, and we declared it modern art. That night, after the kids were asleep, I checked my phone and saw a photo my mother had posted online. Her dining room table, Paige and Trevor, Nolan, 2 empty chairs visible near the end, maybe accidental, maybe not. Caption, "Missing some hearts this year, hoping healing comes soon." Healing. Public healing. The kind where everyone watching knew she was sad, but no one knew what she had done. For the first time, I commented, not angry, not long. Healing requires honesty. Within 10 minutes, she deleted the post. Paige texted me. That was unnecessary. I replied, "So was the porch." She did not answer. The final twist came in December, almost 1 year after the worst Christmas. Damon called me, not texted. I did not answer. He texted, "Please. It's about your mother." I called back because even after everything, the phrase "your mother" still worked on me. Damon sounded uncomfortable. Helene called me. "Why?" "She asked if I would talk to you about Christmas." I closed my eyes. "She thinks you'll listen to me." I laughed once. It escaped before I could stop it. Damon was quiet. Then he said, I told her no. That surprised me. I told her I'm the last person who should ask you for grace, he said. I did not know what to say. He continued. I also told her that what they did was wrong. At Christmas last year, inviting me, I shouldn't have gone. No, I said. You shouldn't have. I'm sorry. It was the first apology he had given without asking for something in the next sentence. I did not forgive him, not in that bright, clean way people like to talk about. But I accepted that the apology existed. Thank you for saying that, I said. We ended the call. I sat there afterward thinking about the strange shape of accountability. Sometimes it arrives late, poorly dressed, from the person you expected least. Sometimes the people who raised you remain outside of it, knocking politely, wanting the benefits without the work. By the time the 18-month mark arrived, my life was not perfect. Perfect is a word people use when they are too far away to see the laundry. My life was full, loud, tiring, expensive. There were still bills, still custody emails, still days when Milo cried after leaving Damon's apartment, still nights when June had nightmares about moving again, still moments when Sadie watched adult conversations too closely, still mornings when I looked in the mirror and saw how much the last year had aged me. But there was also peace. Real peace, not silent peace, not easy peace. The kind of peace that exists because the ground under you is finally honest. I had a department lead position. I had benefits. I had a savings account that grew by a little every month. I had a 3-bedroom townhouse with a tiny patio where June planted marigolds and Milo buried toy dinosaurs like fossils. I had a working dishwasher. I had curtains I chose myself. I had friends from work who knew the truth and did not need me to make it prettier. I had an attorney who sent me holiday cards. I had children who laughed more than they whispered. And then came Sadie's school showcase. It was one of those evening events where every classroom smells like construction paper, dry erase markers, and too much coffee. The students had made research projects about character traits: courage, kindness, curiosity, patience. Sadie chose resilience. I knew she had been working on it for weeks. She had asked to use my laptop. She had checked out books from the library. She had interviewed Marla for a grown-up example of someone who solves problems. She did not ask to interview me. I was secretly grateful. Some things are too close to be turned into a school paragraph. The night of the showcase, I came straight from work in black pants and a blouse, my badge still in my purse. June wore a sparkly headband. Milo carried a cookie he had been told not to crumble, and immediately crumbled. We walked into the gym, and I saw the display boards lined along the walls, parents holding paper cups, teachers smiling tired smiles, kids standing proudly beside glitter letters and printed photos. Sadie stood near the far side. Her board was neat, of course. Green border, handwritten title. Resilience, How People Keep Going. She had sections on the brain, habits, support systems, problem solving, and recovery. At the bottom, in smaller letters, she had written a sentence that made my breath catch. Resilient people do not wait forever at doors that will not open. They build a place where they can stand. I looked at her. She looked back, watching my face. I wrote that part myself, she said. Not from a source. I had to swallow before answering. I can tell. Is it okay? It's more than okay. She smiled, small and proud. That was when I saw them. My mother, my father, Paige, and Nolan had come into the gym. I had told my father about the showcase because Sadie asked me to invite him. I had not invited the others. He must have told them, or my mother must have asked. However it happened, there they were, standing near the entrance, like people arriving late to a story they thought they still had the right to enter. My mother saw me first. Then she saw Sadie's board. Then she saw June holding my hand. Milo leaning against my leg, my work clothes, my posture, the easy way a teacher waved at me from across the room. She looked around as if trying to understand the life in front of her, not the motel version, not the porch version, not the desperate daughter she could pity from a distance. This version, the one with a job title, a home address, children who turned toward her like a center of gravity. Paige looked different too, quieter. Nolan looked uncomfortable, which was new for him. He had recently moved into a small apartment after my parents finally followed through. My mother had told me this in a text disguised as casual news. He was not enjoying rent. My father came over first. He hugged Sadie gently and told her the board was excellent. He looked at the sentence at the bottom, then at me. His eyes said he understood. I did not need him to say it aloud. My mother stepped forward. "Sadie," she said, voice soft. "This is beautiful." Sadie smiled politely. "Thank you." There was no running into her arms, no bright grandma moment. My mother felt it. I saw the hurt cross her face. I also saw her understand, maybe for the first time, that children remember who showed up and who became a story they heard about. Paige looked at the board, especially the sentence about doors. Her eyes filled. She turned to me. "She's incredible," she said. "Yes," I said. "She is." Nolan stood with his hands in his pockets. He looked at me, then away. "Nice place," he muttered, "though we were in a school gym, not my house." "What?" "I mean, nice life." He gave a strange little laugh, not mocking this time. Nervous. "You know what I mean." I looked at my brother, the man who had said there was no space while standing in a house full of it. "No," I said. "I don't." He flushed. My mother touched my arm lightly. I looked down at her hand until she removed it. "Maren," she said, "can we talk sometime? Really talk?" I watched June show Milo how to stand without stepping on cookie crumbs. I watched Sadie explain resilience to my father like a tiny professor. I watched Paige stand quietly with guilt she could no longer decorate. I watched Nolan realize, maybe for the first time, that I was not waiting for him to become my brother again. "Maybe," I said. My mother's face brightened too quickly. "When I'm ready," I added. The brightness faded, but she nodded. That night, after the showcase, the kids and I went home to the townhouse. I made grilled cheese because it was late, and nobody wanted real dinner. June talked with her mouth full about how Sadie was basically a scientist now. Milo fell asleep on the couch with one sock on. Sadie helped me carry plates to the sink. "Were you mad they came?" she asked. I thought about it. "A little." "Were you sad?" "A little." "Are we still okay?" I looked at my daughter, 10 years old, already too wise, still young enough to need the answer. "Yes," I said. "We are still okay?" She nodded. "Good." Later, after they were asleep, I stood in the kitchen with the dishwasher humming. A working dishwasher. Such a small thing. Such a holy sound. I looked around at the life that had grown from the worst night of mine. The school papers on the counter, the grocery list, June's marigold seeds in a cup by the window, Milo's dinosaur under the table, Sadie's resilience board leaning against the wall because she wanted to keep it. I thought about that porch again. For a long time, I believed justice would feel like someone admitting they were wrong in exactly the right words. I imagined my mother saying she should have opened the door. I imagined Paige saying she had been cruel. I imagined Nolan apologizing without a joke hiding behind it. I imagined Damon understanding the size of what he broke. I thought justice required witnesses, a scene, a sentence, a moment where the people who hurt me finally saw me clearly. But the sweetest justice did not arrive like that. It arrived as rent paid on time. It arrived as my name on a lease. It arrived as a custody order that reflected the work I had always done. It arrived as a promotion letter. It arrived as a savings account. It arrived as my daughter writing about resilience in her own words. It arrived as my children sleeping in their own rooms, in a home I built without the permission of anyone who once told me there was no room. My family did not recognize my life 18 months later because they had only recognized me when I was useful, quiet, and easy to place. They knew the daughter who brought side dishes, remembered birthdays, absorbed tension, forgave quickly, and asked for little. They did not know the woman who could be denied shelter and still build a home. They did not know the mother who could be called unstable and answer with records. They did not know the version of me that stopped begging at closed doors. Damon still takes the children every other weekend. He is better than he was. Not transformed, not heroic, better. We communicate by text. We keep it about the kids. Sometimes he sends photos from the park or the movies, and I save the ones where the children look happy. I no longer search his face for regret. That is not my job. My father is trying, slowly, imperfectly. He has learned to ask before showing up. He has learned that sorry does not erase. He has learned that being allowed near us is not the same as being returned to the old place. My mother is still learning. Some days she does better. Some days she sends messages that begin with, "I don't understand why," and I have to put the phone down until I can answer without handing her my piece. Paige has apologized twice more, better each time. Nolan has not apologized at all. That, too, is information. I do not hate them. Hate is heavy, and I carried enough. But I do not confuse not hating with returning. I do not confuse distance with bitterness. I do not confuse boundaries with revenge. People ask me sometimes how I did it. They expect a dramatic answer, a secret, a turning point, a perfect plan. The truth is less exciting and more powerful. I did the next thing, then the next, then the next. I got the motel room. I went to work. I printed the records. I found the apartment. I sold the ring. I answered the lawyer. I packed the lunches. I paid what I could. I cried in bathrooms. I washed my face. I showed up again. A life is rebuilt in steps so small no one claps for them while they are happening. But one day you look around and the steps have become a staircase. 18 months ago, I stood on a porch with 3 children and a garbage bag, asking for space in a house that had plenty. They told me there was none. My brother laughed. My sister lectured. My parents closed the door. Tonight, my children are asleep under a roof I pay for. Sadie's resilience board is propped by the wall. June's chalkboard room is covered in crooked horses and one dramatic dragon. Milo's moon nightlight is glowing down the hall. My work clothes are hanging over a chair because tomorrow morning I will go lead a department full of files, forms, and quiet proof. There are strawberries in the refrigerator because I buy them now without doing math in the aisle. There is no sweeter outcome than that. None. If someone tells you there is no room for you, listen carefully. They may be telling you the truth about their house, they may be telling you the truth about their heart, but they are not telling you the truth about your future. Sometimes the door closing is not the end of your story. Sometimes it is the sound that teaches you to build your own. The end